Hey girl, let's talk crime. Today we are going to discuss the kidnapping and murder of 34-year-old Eliza Fletcher out of Memphis, Tennessee. Born on November 9th, 1987 in Memphis, Tennessee to her parents Adele and James. She graduated from school in 2006 and then went on to play soccer at the University of Memphis and ultimately received her master's degree in teaching from Belmont University. She goes on to become a kindergarten teacher, and people would describe her as one that was very childlike, had a lot of energy. She really loved and paid attention to her students, knowing each of them individually. Eliza meets her husband Richard at Second Presbyterian Church, and then she goes on to marry him in March 2014 at the same church. According to the people in the city, it was one of the most lavish and amazing weddings that they had seen that year. Very beautiful. They go on to have two little boys, Richard and Harry. She was very passionate about being a wife and a mother. They enjoyed a lot of outdoorsy things such as hiking, water sports, and she was an avid runner as well. So Eliza comes from a very wealthy family in Tennessee. So her grandfather, Joe Orgel, was a billionaire. She was very well taken care of. As I stated, Eliza was an avid runner, and on September 2nd, she decided to go for a 4 a.m. run, which was not anything unusual, and she took her normal route, which was near the University of Memphis. At 7 a.m., when she had not returned from this 4 a.m. run, her husband Richard did contact authorities to report this. They were doing a surveillance check, and they did find a camera that captured a black GMC that had driven past Eliza and parked almost as if it was waiting for her to run by. Now, this same GMC was also seen in the area approximately 24 minutes earlier. So as this GMC is parked, as Eliza is running, a man gets out of the SUV and aggressively runs towards Eliza and forcefully puts her into the passenger seat of this SUV. Now, the SUV stayed there for 4 minutes before it took off. According to the surveillance, there did appear to be a struggle, so violent that authorities say that Eliza had to be injured during this abduction. But around 6:45 a.m., there was a local bike rider that had found a cell phone as well as a pair of Champion slides. Now, this cell phone was ultimately given to police. Now, the slides, the Champion slides, were then sent off for DNA testing. There was a briefing that same afternoon, and authorities stated that they are not aware or don't believe that there's any connection between Eliza's abduction and the fact that there have been reports that the women's cross-country team had been being harassed while running in that area. Now, the samplings from the DNA did come back that afternoon, and it linked to a man by the name of Cleotha Abston. Now, authorities looked at surveillance the day prior to Eliza's abduction and did find that Cleotha was wearing those same Champion slides at a local theater. Authorities then go on to obtain cell phone records from Cleotha, which places his cell phone in the same area that Eliza had been abducted from that morning. The following day, Saturday morning around 10:45 a.m., U.S. Marshals do spot the black SUV. Now, they also did see a man that met the description of Cleotha, and he did try to flee, but police were able to put him into custody. Now, his brother Mario tells police that he, as well as another woman, did see that Cleotha was cleaning out the SUV. They also saw that he was washing his clothes early on in the sink. Mario had also told police that he thought that his brother was acting really strange that day. Once Cleotha was in custody, he refused to talk to investigators. He did not give any information about where Eliza could be, if she was alive or dead, or anything else that could lead them to finding Eliza. On Sunday, September 4th, Authorities were seen throughout Memphis, Tennessee, searching everywhere for Eliza. This was also the day that her family had released a statement and put up a $50,000 reward to any information leading to 34-year-old Eliza. On Monday, during the search of Eliza, they did discover a body in South Memphis behind a vacant home, and next to this body was a trash bag that had what appeared to be her running shorts inside. But up until this point, he had been charged with tampering with evidence as well as kidnapping and giving a $500,000 bond. On Tuesday, just minutes after he had arrived in court, the body that was found behind the vacant home had been identified as 34-year-old Eliza Fletcher, and his charges were upgraded to murder and his bond was revoked. Around 1 p.m. on that Tuesday, September 6th, her family did release a statement. We are heartbroken and devastated by this senseless loss. Eliza was such a joy to so many, her family, friends, colleagues, students, parents, members of her Second Presbyterian Church congregation, and everyone who knew her. Now it's time to remember and celebrate how special she was and to support those who cared so much for her. We appreciate all the expressions of love and concern we have received. We are grateful beyond measure to local, state, and federal law enforcement for their tireless efforts to find Eliza and to bring justice to the person responsible for this horrible crime. We hope that everyone, including media representatives, understand the need for the family to grieve in privacy without outside intrusion during this painful time. Now let's talk about Cleotha Apston, who is the person being charged with Eliza's kidnapping and murder. So his troubles began pretty young. It was said that he had a pretty rough upbringing. At the age of 11 is when he entered the court system. He was charged with theft. At the age of 14, he was convicted of rape. At the age of 16 years old, he had kidnapped a Memphis attorney at gunpoint, put him in the trunk, and was trying to get money from him at a ATM. Attorney had reached out for help, and Cleotha ended up fleeing. Now, something interesting about this attorney was that he had worked at the same law firm as Eliza's uncle. Now, as I stated earlier, this family does come from money. And so initially, I know I did, and I think other people were speculating, was this a kidnapping for money, for ransom? Did it have anything to do with her billionaire grandfather? Throughout his teens, he had gotten in trouble for curfew violations, truancy, aggravated assault. After the kidnapping of the Memphis attorney, that attorney did state that he felt like Cleotha had absolutely no remorse for what he had done. His file had also stated that there were no signs of mental illness, no signs of being suicidal, and that he had no medical issues, but that he was listed as 100% violent. Now, for this kidnapping of this Memphis attorney, he was sentenced to 24 years with time served. And in Tennessee, you can get out after serving at least 85% of your time, along with doing different programs, classes within the prison. He was ultimately released after 20 years in November 2020. In September 2021, there was a woman that was kidnapped and raped. Now, the DNA from this was sent off. It is typical, unless extradited like it was in the Eliza Fletcher case, that these things can take a long time, like up to 45 weeks. This sample set until June of this year. 4 days prior to Eliza Fletcher being kidnapped, the DNA came in and police had suspected that Cleotha was a part of this rape and kidnapping. On the same day that Eliza's body was identified was the same day that a match came in saying that Cleotha Apston was responsible for the kidnapping and rape in 2021. And now he has been indicted on charges of aggravated rape, kidnapping, and unlawful possession of a weapon for that September 21st, 2021 kidnapping and rape that involved a different woman. He does have bonds for like the weapon charge, which is $3,500, I believe, but he also has the murder charge, which there is no bond, so he will not be released as of now, and he does remain in the Shelby County Jail, and his next court appearance is scheduled for September 19th, 2022. Eliza was laid to rest at Second Presbyterian Church on September 10th, the same church she married her husband Richard in 8 years ago.